everyone, welcome to this video. I apologize for the delay. I originally intended to get this video out there much sooner, like 2 nights ago, but stuff happened and prevented that from happening. Last night I actually lost power, and that prevented me from filming at all, which is unfortunate, but I'm here now. The reason I wanted to get this out there earlier was because AEW's Double or Nothing is happening tomorrow. It's happening Saturday, with the pre-show kicking off at 6 p.m., so I wanted to do a preview and predictions video for that, and, you know, ideally I would have gotten it out there a couple of days ahead of time to kind of allow more time to breathe and get the hype train going, but I'm here now, and I'm going to talk about AEW, but before I jump into that pay-per-view, which is going to be the main topic of this video, there are a couple other things I want to touch up on, mainly the WWE's new 24/7 championship. I've got some things to say about that, and I want to get that covered. But also, I want to throw this out there. First thing, if you follow me on Twitter at all, you already know this, but I have seen Godzilla King of the Monsters. I saw it a week early. I got tickets to a ticket to a special screening in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, and I've seen the movie. Yes, and I should point out that I did not sign a non-disclosure agreement or anything, and I'm not a professional critic, so I'm not bound by any kind of like review embargo or anything like that. I could literally come on here and spoil the entire movie, and I think I'm allowed to do that because I didn't sign anything. So, however, I'm not going to do a full-fledged review until after the movie has officially debuted and had its opening night and everything. I'll honor any like expectations of saving reviews or anything like that. Now, the reason I want to do that is because, again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that's interested in seeing the movie, but I will say these 3 things, and hopefully that'll make you all interested in seeing the movie. 1, I loved it and I want to see it again. 2, the movie itself is not necessarily perfect, but the monsters are. So if you're in it for the monsters, go see this movie, because they were fantastic. And 3, the last scene made me cry. It will not make anybody else cry unless you are truly a diehard Godzilla fan, so as a fan of the character, it touched me. I don't think anybody else is going to react to the final scene the way I did, but I'm just letting you guys know. I had tears in my eyes for the final scene as the movie faded to black. But again, that's just me. I don't think anybody else is going to react that way. I love Godzilla so much, and it meant so much to me. But anyway, those are all my thoughts that I'm willing to give on Godzilla King of the Monsters for now. I'll have a more fully fleshed out video sometime next week once it's had its opening night and after I've seen the movie again, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it on the 30th, and then I might be seeing it on the 31st because my sister wants to see it. She's like, I want to go see it with you, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And then that weekend, I'm going up and seeing it with some of my old college buddies. So by the time next week is over, I may have already seen the movie 4 times. Yeah, I'm not a crazy fan, not at all. So that's all the talk on Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, let's go into the WWE's new championship, the 24/7 championship. Now, when they announced at Money in the Bank that they were going to have Mick Foley introduce a new title, immediately my brain was like, all right, they're doing the Hardcore Championship. That's what it is. And I was kind of right, because the 24/7 championship that they debuted is basically a return to the 24/7 rule that the Hardcore title had back in the day. Now, what were my thoughts on the Hardcore Championship and specifically the 24/7 rule back then? I thought when Crash Holly was doing it in early 2000, I thought it was great. And Crash Holly's character back in the day is not remembered as being one of the biggest stars necessarily, but he is proof that back in those days, almost everybody got over. Like, if you didn't get over in the Attitude Era, you sucked. You just flat out sucked. And there were times when Crash Holly would get massive pops because he got over. The guy got over. And his character was so brilliant because initially, before he was doing the Houdini of hardcore and the 24/7 hardcore champion deal, he was doing the super heavyweight deal where he would bring a scale to the ring and thought of himself as being bigger than he really was, and he would take on guys that were like twice his size because he was a guy that always bit off more than he could chew and was the tiniest dog in the fight but thought he was the biggest. And there was a lot of comedy that came with that, and I thought it was a really good character and nice identity that Crash was able to map out for himself. And when they did the 24/7 rule, it's like, that is perfect for Crash's character, I think. And I thought leading into WrestleMania 2000, a lot of the segments they did, like them at like it wasn't a Chuck E. Cheese, but like the ball pit and like the children's indoor playground, sort of like Chuck E. Cheese. I thought that was great. Assaulting him in his hotel room and the airport. I thought all of that stuff was really good and really great comedy for the time period. And I thought it built into WrestleMania 2000 really well. And eventually you get to this point where Crash Holly is like, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing it. I can't sleep. I can't eat. You all are driving me crazy. And so that's where they agreed to suspend the 24/7 rule and go into the Hardcore Battle Royal. Match that didn't go so well, but at least it was like a payoff to the storyline. Now, the problem I had with the 24/7 rule beyond WrestleMania 2000 is that it kept going. And I was like, guys, it's all, you already told the story. It's done. We don't need to go back to the 24/7 rule. But they kept doing it, and that really annoyed me because the more they did it, the less funny it became and the less interesting it became. And the Hardcore title got so bastardized with the constant title changes that I think Raven still holds the record for most championship reigns in WWE history entirely because of the Hardcore title. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I mean, that was just, it became a farce. And they kept that joke running way longer than it needed to. Again, WrestleMania 2000 should have been the end of it, and then they should have figured out something else to do with the Hardcore title, or get rid of it entirely, either way. But up until they did, they unified the Hardcore title, I believe, with the IC title, if I'm not mistaken, or the European title. I remember there was that period in 2002 where they took like some of the extra championships, like the Euro title and the Hardcore title, and they just kind of unified all of them with the IC title at some point. When it was finally gone, I wasn't sad to see it go because it was like, dude, I remember watching WrestleMania 18 and they were still doing the 24/7 skits. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is still going? Jesus, let it die, Vince, for the love of God. So, the Hardcore title has not been seen since 2002, and the 24/7 rule has not been seen since 2002, and I said good riddance. They beat that joke into the ground. It was funny for about a month and a half or 2 months leading into WrestleMania 2000. After that, it was a complete waste of time. And now they're bringing back the 24/7 rule, which feels like, this really feels like, WWE typically does a lot of things where they feel like they're in a rating slump, and they'll bring people back like the McMahons or Lesnar or Undertaker or Rock or whoever to kind of like boost ratings and get people to care again. This feels like, oh shit, we don't have anybody we can bring back. Let's just create something crazy to try and like generate some kind of interest and make the show feel somewhat different. And my understanding is that they're gonna do something on the network where they track the progress of the 24/7 championship, and if there's a title change, there'll be like an immediate news update on the network or something, which I guess that's okay. But first of all, the last thing the WWE needed was another belt because they have way too many championships as is. Second of all, they suck at comedy, and this is purely a comedy farce belt, because that's what the Hardcore title ultimately became. And something like that is not going to be enough to get me to want to watch Raw and SmackDown again, and I just don't care. That's just it. I just don't care. And it feels like, based on who's already held the belt, because I think the belt's already changed hands like 2 or 3 times, it's going to be the low-card guys that they don't know what else to do with, so they're just going to chase the fucking new version of the Hardcore title, which is ultimately what the Hardcore title became. It was like all the low-card guys are like, oh shit, we don't know what to do with these guys. Let's just bloop, and just throw them together. And every once in a while, they'd put it on like a Rob Van Dam or an Undertaker just to try and trick people into caring, but it never really stuck. Then Maven got it for some reason. But it's the 24/7 championship. Oh, by the way, the belt itself looks gaudy as fuck. Like, the 24/7 logo with the green strap, it looks fucking terrible. And granted, it doesn't look as bad as like the WWE's Cruiserweight belt, the purple fruit roll-up belt, or like the red and blue tag belts, or anything like that. But good God, it looks gaudy. Just looks really, really like garish and ugly and stupid looking. And I don't know why WWE is in this pattern of making all their belts look like children's toys, but their belts look ugly. I'm sorry. And I hate to be that guy. It's like, back in my day, my belts looked fantastic. Because they did. The old school IC title looked amazing. And granted, they went back to the old school IC title design, and everyone loved it. The old tag belts look great. The Winged Eagle WWF title belt, I still think, is one of the nicest looking belts I've ever seen. I've already said, I would never collect replica belts, because I don't want to throw that type of money around, and B, like, I don't know, it just feels like I'm buying something I don't deserve. Like, I don't deserve to hold a wrestling championship belt, and I realize the title lineages technically aren't real, but I don't know, it would just bother me to own one. But if I were going to get any, the only ones I would even consider are the Winged Eagle WWF title belt, the big gold belt from the NWA and WCW, maybe even like an NWO spray-painted version of the big gold belt I would also be tempted to get, and the $1 Million Championship belt. Those are the only ones I would even consider getting. Other than that, don't care. But that's just trying to explain, like, the Winged Eagle belt is one of the nicest looking belts, and back in the old days, like, the belts were just so nice looking. And even the old school NWA title belt with the globe, that's a very nice looking belt. And I'm not saying, like, the look of the belt matters that much. I mean, ultimately, the belt's not going to mean any more if it looks nicer. It's just, it makes the show look better, and it does, like, make it feel like, oh yeah, this is a prize that somebody would fight for. If it's nicer looking, I don't know, but yeah, that 24/7 thing, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that thing. It looks terrible. And somebody was telling me that the 24/7 logo on the belt is actually the same, like, font for the 24/7 on-demand service that they used to have back in the day. So it's like, oh wow, they took an old logo and just slapped it on a belt. That's great work there. Now, I've heard that the 24/7 championship was suggested by the USA Network, which, if that's true, it's like, oh my god, we have really gone down the rabbit hole of desperation where the network is starting to make decisions for the WWE. It's like, oh my god, this ain't great. So, yeah, the 24/7 championship, not a fan of it. I think WWE has too many belts as it is. I think they need to unify a ton of those belts, get rid of both women's, or unify the two singles women's titles, unify the US and IC titles, unify the WWE and Universal titles. Just, they really need to shorten the list of belts, because it's at a point now where I feel like I could go to the WWE, get on the main roster, and I'd be a belt holder within 2 weeks. Because it's like, you trip over someone, you win a belt. It's getting to feel that that level of oversaturation with their titles. And I've said it many times before, but belts mean less if they're harder to get. Championships mean more if they're harder to get. And if you have, like, an infinite amount of possibilities to win a belt, then it doesn't mean as much when you win it. And that was one of the reasons when I go back and watch older stuff, Jim Crockett Promotions, great show, great wrestling, great talents, great roster, had a few too many belts. Did you really need 2 sets of tag titles? Did you really need, all the NWA titles to be featured on the show? And that was like, dude, I feel like I owe Crockett an apology for saying that, because, like, dude, it's nothing compared to what's going on right now in WWE, but I think the old WWE format, back when I first started watching, it's like you had the world title, you had the mid-card title, and you had tag titles. I think that's... And in today's modern era, you can have a cruiserweight title for that division and a women's title. And I think you're fine. You don't need to do any more than that. Any more than that, you're probably oversaturated. Even NXT is like, all right, we have a North American title. Why do you need what does NXT need a mid-card title for? And granted, they've had some great matches for that belt. I'm just saying, is it entirely necessary for a roster that's really not that big to have a secondary belt? And then they branched off, and there's NXT UK, and they have their own series of belts. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't, like... No sane human being could be expected to keep track of all this. But in any case, there's too many belts in WWE, and I hate this 24/7 belt. It's stupid, and it's not going to make me want to watch Raw or SmackDown at all. It's not. It just feels like a cheap way to try and, like, throw shit up against a wall and see if it sticks and generates some kind of interest, but no, it doesn't. It's not going to work on me anyway. I can't speak for everybody else, but it's not going to work on me. So, I'm done rambling. Now it's time to talk about All Elite Wrestling's first pay-per-view event, Double or Nothing. Technically, they're second because it's the same people running it, the same people that ran All In, Cody and the Bucks and Omega, those guys. And I'm really excited for this pay-per-view because this is going to be the first big step for All Elite Wrestling before they debut on television later this year. And it's like, all right, here we go. They've got to start putting all their pieces into place and getting us ready for their big debut on television. They're going to be showing up on TNT, which there's something poetic about that a major wrestling competition is showing up again and airing on TNT. It's like, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? It's weird how everything plays out. But actually, as you'll notice, my Sting picture is hanging right in the back right there, my Sting autograph. And it's kind of like a weird coincidence that AEW is now going to be on TNT, the home of WCW, during the Monday Night Wars. And it's funny, I'm actually reading Guy Evans' Nitro book right now, and it's actually a really good read. I'm about halfway through it, and it's like, wow, this is a really good book. So, just sidebar, I actually recommend reading that book because it's really good. But anyway, I'm really excited for this pay-per-view. I'm having a few friends over to come watch it and to paint the picture of kind of where a lot of us are what a lot of us are thinking and how a lot of us are feeling right now. The same group of friends, we were going to have a party the night before WrestleMania to see the Ring of Honor New Japan show, but that, because of personal problems, that couldn't happen. And they wanted to do Double or Nothing for sure. When I suggested they come over for WrestleMania, they were like, fuck no. Like, you can watch that if you want, Patrick, but fuck no, we're not watching WrestleMania. So that tells you, at least in my circle of friends, where everything stands right now. It's just, and I think the wrestling world needs an AEW. I think the wrestling world needs more options and more someone who could potentially be, if not on the level of WWE, then at least something close to it. Because, good Lord, there needs to be other options out there, not just for the fans, but for the talent. Because they need to have a security blanket and somewhere else to go if things don't work out with Vince, or and vice versa. If things don't work out in AEW, maybe they can try and get a job with Vince and see what they can do there, and be more like independent contractors rather than just, tied down to one company and just take whatever Vince gives them. And we've seen it happen a lot of times, pretty much since the end of the Monday Night Wars, where Vince will get guys and then they get royally screwed up, but then they're stuck. It's like, all right, I can't really go anywhere else. And that's one of the reasons I respect Cody and the Bucks and Kenny Omega so much, that they've built brands for themselves. Cody got let go by the WWE, and he bet on himself and marketed himself and built a brand for himself, and joined up with the Bucks and Omega, and they've all combined and shown the true entrepreneurial spirit that has been sorely lacking in professional wrestling, where they created their own shit, they marketed the holy hell out of themselves, and they even proved that they could run a show last year in All In, and now they're taking this big leap and starting up another company, and good for them. I give them all the praise in the world. I've also said it, recently, that it's like, all right, they also have to be careful though, because being a promoter of a weekly television program is going to come with a different level of scrutiny than just running a show like All In or Double or Nothing. It's going to be like, all right, now your booking decisions are going to be a lot more scrutinized by the online fans and the wrestling media. Like, okay, AEW Championship. Is Cody going to put the belt on himself? It's Kenny Omega's an executive producer. Is he going to put the belt on himself? Is that going to come with a lot of scrutiny? Or are they going to get the Jeff Jarrett online treatment? And I actually defended Jarrett being the champion in TNA during the early years, because during those early years, there was so much uncertainty that, Jarrett being the champion, it's like, well, at least I know Vince isn't going to offer me a shitload of money, and I'm not going to jump ship on my own company. So there was a benefit to having Jarrett in that spot that I think a lot of fans just didn't understand. But, it comes with that level of scrutiny now. It's like, all right, if Omega wins the belt, is he going to become like, oh, he's like Triple H, he's like Jeff Jarrett, he's like one of those guys that just puts the belt on himself? I don't know. And writing a weekly wrestling program, that's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're live. And a lot of things I read in the press release sounded very interesting, where they want to go for more of a sports-like format, and they're studying ways that they can use statistics to kind of help tell their stories, which is something I've advocated for years. I'm like, dude, if you could pull that off, that would be amazing. But Again, we'll see when the weekly show starts up, but this is going to feel like a big deal. I mean, this show is like, all right, this is going to be fascinating to see what they do, because I think, they're going to hold this pay-per-view, and then it's going to be another 5 months, I think, before they debut on TNT. So I think they're going to do something crazy. I really think, don't be surprised if Jon Moxley shows up. Don't be surprised if there's some major surprise that happens before the pay-per-view goes off the air. I'm thinking Moxley, which would be huge if they got him, but it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be an interesting starting point for AEW, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. So, without further ado, let's get into the card. First up, I guess I'll talk about this. We were supposed to get Hangman Page versus Pac, or Adrian Neville. But apparently Adrian Neville didn't want to put Hangman Page over, and now the match is not happening. Not on this show anyway. They did have a match that I think they aired on Being the Elite, but it's not happening on the pay-per-view, which is unfortunate. And it's like, well, hey, when you give more freedom to the wrestlers, this is the other side of the coin. It's like Vince has way too much control over the wrestlers, so they all feel like robots and interchangeable cogs in the machine. But if you give too much control, then you get situations like this where you lose a match a week before the show. So, 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. And that's unfortunate that we're losing this match, because that was one of the things when they signed that match. It was like, ooh, that's interesting. That'd be a really good match, and now we're not getting it. But I'm sure they'll have something lined up for Hangman Page, and they'll figure out something for him. Maybe that'll be Jon Moxley's debut. That would repair everything right there, because I think most people would view Moxley as a bigger star than Neville, but we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out, but I'm sure Hangman will have something to do on the card. Next up, we have the Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent Barreta, taking on Angelico and Jack Evans. Ooh, two of my favorites from Lucha Underground, going up against the plucky Ring of Honor tag team. This should be a fun match, and Angelico, when he's healthy, is really something special with some of the crazy Daredevil shit that he does. I mean, I think any longtime Lucha Underground fan will tell you that one of the best moments in the history of the show was his famous dive off the top of Dario Cueto's office. And Jack Evans, I mean, that dude he's such a natural in there, and I think he's only gotten better as he's lasted longer throughout his career. So I think that could be a really good match. I don't really know who goes over. I guess I would go with Angelico and Jack Evans to go over, but I guess because there's not like a huge storyline match, I don't see it being like a huge deal either way. But it should be a really fun tag match. I could even see that as a pretty solid opener. Next up, we have a 6-woman tag. Aja Kong, who still gets work. Good for her. Who's that? Yuka Sakazaki and Emi Sakura versus Hikaru Shida, Riho Abe, and Ryo Mizunami. Now, except for Aja Kong, I don't know who any of those people are. But this looks like it could be a nice filler match. Aja Kong, for those of you who don't know, she actually wrestled one match in the WWF, that I remember anyway, where she was on the opposing Survivor Series team against Alundra Blaze's team in 1995. And actually made a huge impact. She looked like the female version of Vader, like, oh my god. And it looked like she was being prepped to take the title from Medusa, Alundra Blaze, and they were going to have a nice little program there, potentially heading into WrestleMania 11, or WrestleMania 12, sorry. But Alundra got fired not long after this, and the entire women's division just got let go, and we all know what happened after that. But we never got that Aja Kong Medusa / Alundra Blaze match, not in the WWF anyway. And that's a shame, because after that match in 95, I was like, I kind of want to see it, because this looks kind of cool. Like, Aja Kong looks awesome. And, she was, again, female version of Vader was originally what I thought. It was probably the first time in my life where I got really excited to see a women's match. I'm like, oh my god, I want to see Alundra Blaze versus Aja Kong. And it didn't happen, because WWE pulled the plug on it before we could get to see it. But every time I see Aja Kong pop up every once in a while, I'm like, oh my god, the woman still gets work. And last time I saw her, she still looked good. So I think in a 6-woman tag, she's going to be allowed to hit her spots and be really cool. So hopefully this is just a really fun filler match. I'm going to pick Aja Kong's team to go over. And nothing too special about it, but it's going to be neat to see Aja Kong, if nothing else. Next up, we have a women's match. Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose versus Kylie Rae. Now, Britt Baker is the only one of those three that I know, so this is going to be a bit of a showcase. Actually, let me see. Who is Nyla Rose? Because that name sounds familiar. Okay, no, I don't know who that is. Okay, but yeah, I guess Britt Baker would go over unless there's something really special about Nyla Rose or Kylie Rae that I'm not aware of. But again, I'm just basing this off name recognition. Hopefully it's a nice showcase for the women. I thought they had a good match at All In with Tessa Blanchard involved. And they've signed a few other women for the roster, so we'll see how their women's division ultimately shapes up. But Britt Baker kind of impressed me back at All In, so hopefully she puts forth another strong performance here, and I'm going to pick her to go over. All right, then we have the 21-man Casino Battle Royal, with the winner getting a very important prize. The winner gets to be the second participant in a AEW World Championship match to crown the first ever champion. The other slot in that match goes into the winner of the main event, which I'll get into that last, obviously. So, the participants in our first ever AEW World Championship match is going to be determined on this show. So, from there, the participants we have listed so far are Sonny Kiss, who I believe is Exolicious from Lucha Underground, if I'm not mistaken, Brandon Cutler, Ace Romero, Glacier, oh my god, Brian Pillman Jr., Sunny Days, MJF, Joey Janela, Dustin Thomas, Billy Gunn, Jimmy Havoc, Michael Nakazawa, Jungle Boy. This will be the first time I get to see Jungle Boy. This will be interesting. Isaiah Cassidy, Mark Quinn, Luchasaurus, my guy, Vibora from Lucha Underground. Okay, if there's one guy that Lucha Underground did not get enough out of, it was Luchasaurus. I really like this guy, so I'm really excited to see him. Sean Spears, and according to this, we've got 4 spots that are yet to be determined. So, is this where... do they put Hangman Page into this? Is this where Jon Moxley shows up and Jon Moxley wins it? Because I gotta be honest, I'm looking at this, and I don't see anybody that jumps out at me as being like a legitimate threat to either Kenny Omega or Chris Jericho. Where you can get like a really big first match out of it, unless there's like a big star that they want to build around that we don't know about yet. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But I'm gonna pick. It's gonna be one of the participants that we don't know yet. That's my pick. What we're gonna go with. All right, and then from there we get another 6-man tag. SoCal Uncensored, Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky versus the Strong Hearts, Seema, T-Hawk, and El Lindemann. It's going to be great to see SoCal Uncensored again, because I was really digging their whole act, and I've kind of missed them in Ring of Honor. I think Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky have really good chemistry together, and it's, full credit to Daniels. That guy has been around forever, and, always seems to get the rug pulled out from under him, and just when you think he's getting stale, he does something to reinvent himself, and I love the whole SoCal Uncensored bit, so I'm really excited to see them on this pay-per-view. I'm going to pick them to win the 6-man tag, because I think they're going to be a faction that gets a little bit more build up in AEW than these other guys, the Strong Hearts. So, SoCal Uncensored, this should be a really nice showcase for them, and I'm excited to see them again. And that's the other thing, man. Some of these guys, I haven't seen them in forever because they left Ring of Honor, or they left their companies, and Lucha Underground has obviously gone under, unfortunately. So I haven't seen some of these guys in a while. So I'm looking at this card and I'm like, this is exciting. I haven't seen these people in forever, it seems. So this is really cool. All right, and from there we have our 3 main events. We've got the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers, Penta El Zero and Phoenix, and a tag team match for the AAA World Tag Team Championships. The Bucks are the current title holders. This is going to be nuts. I mean, Pentagon and Phoenix, they have been putting on some crazy matches lately. The Full Metal Mayhem match they just had in Impact Wrestling was nuts. And we all know about the Young Bucks and how good they are. So I think that this match could potentially be a show stealer. It depends on what version of the Bucks we get. If we get Spot Festy Bucks, it'll be a fun match, but not like a substantial one. If we get Bucks that like to tell stories in the ring, then it's going to be an amazing match. So we'll see. But I'm going to pick the Young Bucks to go over. I don't know, because it's... Yeah, I'm thinking that there's not going to be a title change if it's a different company's belts. I could be wrong, but I'm going to pick the Young Bucks to go over in what should be a very exciting and action-packed match, and I'm very excited to see Pentagon and Phoenix, because again, I was watching Lucha Underground, and I really got attached to both of those guys, so it's great to see them on this pay-per-view. I'm really excited for it. Next up, we've got the Battle of the Rhodes Brothers, Cody versus Dustin Rhodes, and a match that has gotten excellent promos on being the Elite, and probably, aside from Jericho and Omega, probably the most hype match on the show. And, I'm happy for both guys that they're getting to have the match that they've always wanted. This is a match that should have happened at WrestleMania. They had a few opportunities to do it, never got to do it. Dustin had gotten to a point where he was putting forth some of the best work in his whole career, and then they saddled Cody with the Stardust gimmick, which didn't really work through no fault of Cody's. He played that character to the fucking hilt and did the best he could. But even before that, there had been teasing and all the times they met up together in the Royal Rumble. It's like they really wanted that WrestleMania match. And one of the things that's been missing from WrestleMania in recent years is that, and I've said it a ton of times, they've relied way too much on past stars and the part-timers, so they get a spot at WrestleMania, but it doesn't allow for the mid-card guys to get a key match to kind of give them a little bit more promotion and build themselves up into being bigger stars. Perfect example, Miz and Sandow. That should have been a WrestleMania match. I'm not going to let that go. It's like that the story was there, the guys were over, Sandow got over with the crowd. That absolutely should have been a WrestleMania undercard match with a payoff to the story, and they didn't get it, and I think that's disgusting. I think that's a damn shame and poor storytelling on WWE's part to do that. And that great story that they had there didn't get the proper payoff because fucking hell, who knows? And it comes down to, it's like, well, Sandow's not a draw. It's like, well, he could be a draw if you paid off his storylines. You want to make stars, don't you? Like, Jesus Christ. And the Rhodes Brothers, that's another example of that type of deal where, they absolutely should have gotten a WrestleMania match at some point and they didn't get it. So here, they're getting it, and they're going to get to have the match that they want. I don't know what to expect out of Dustin at this point. I think he's going to be really motivated. I think both guys are going to be really motivated. I expect some bells and whistles in this, and maybe it's going to be more of like an old school NWA type of brawl, perhaps. But I think this is going to be a really fun match. I say Cody goes over, and hopefully this serves as a really nice part of the show and a really nice tribute, obviously, to Dusty Rhodes. His two sons get to go out there, perform, and have a really nice match on a big pay-per-view in a promotion that Cody created on their first real pay-per-view with the AEW banner. This is going to be a really big night for them, and I'm really excited for them. And I'm very happy for them that they get to have the match they always wanted. And I'm going to pick Cody to go over, because that just seems to make the most sense at this point. But from there, we get the main event, with the winner getting an opportunity to become the first ever AEW World Heavyweight Champion. The winner of this match will face the winner of the Battle Royal at a later date. Who knows when that'll be. But it's going to be the rematch. Alpha versus Omega 2. Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho. And I thought the match they had at Wrestle Kingdom was absolutely fucking amazing. For the years that I've been watching the Wrestle Kingdom events for New Japan, that's one of my personal favorite matches that I've seen in these Dome shows. I thought that they went out there, tore it down, and it more than lived up to its insane hype, because they got that match and it became overnight like the hottest match in pro wrestling. It's like, oh my god, I want to see that match. And it more than lived up to the hype. I thought it was an absolutely incredible match. Again, with Jericho, he's almost 50 years old. You don't know exactly what you're going to get out of him. I don't know if they can live up to that match in that atmosphere with that level of build-up, but I think in the main event spot in front of what is hopefully a very excited Las Vegas crowd, they're able to deliver a really solid main event that, if not matches up to their first match, at least puts forth a really strong main event for the pay-per-view. I'm going to pick Kenny Omega to win. I think Kenny Omega is going to be primed to become the first AEW champion, unless they've got some major surprise waiting in the wings that we don't know about. But for right now, I'm counting on Kenny Omega to be the first champion. So, Kenny Omega gets the win here, and hopefully the match is very good as well. So that's the card for AEW's Double or Nothing. I'm very excited for it, having a party for it. Already bought the beer, going to order pizza, and we're going to have a grand old time. It's going to be great. So, how do you watch AEW's Double or Nothing? The information is going to be included down below in the description box, so be sure to check that out if you're curious in checking out the pay-per-view. Admittedly, the pay-per-view price is a little steep. It's about $50, and I'm like, that's a bit pricey, but God damn it, if you give me something I want, I'm going to pay for it. So, all right, I'll go ahead and do it. So, that is all I have for you now. This is my final hype for AEW's Double or Nothing, and I hope the show is a rousing success. I hope it goes very well, and hopefully it gets AEW off on a good foot. But I will have a review of this show sometime this weekend, maybe even right after the show and my party's wrapped up and everything. Who knows? But we'll see how that goes. But that is all I have for you right now. Thank you again, everybody, for watching, and be sure to check out AEW's Double or Nothing. I think it's going to be something really special and interesting, especially as the start of a brand new promotion that's going to be debuting on TNT. And these guys seem to have all their ducks in a row, so we'll see how it all goes. But I'm wrapping this up now. I'll see you all later, and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.